idea. Joey knows this.
Called Geek World All-Stars.
The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable podcasts.
See if they could become something more.
See if they could work together when we needed them to.
To cast the pods we never could.
Follow us at stars_geek on Twitter and stay tuned for more.
Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of Superhero Speak.
But I think many of the people that love this character and that love superheroes in general have used these stories as inspiration to say, you know what? I'm going to do something good in the world. I'm going to make a difference like my hero when I was a kid.
That is my fondest memory of it, because when you're doing comic books, you want them to affect people, right? You want people to care. You want to strike emotions, and I knew that Clone Saga was striking a lot of emotions.
Can you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Mickey Mouse?
I can totally imagine that.
I'm sure somebody's written that one too.
Quarter pounder with cheese in France, Mickey. What? Royale with cheese, Mickey. Yeah, I can totally.
See?
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Yes, I gladly sacrifice up my progeny to you, almighty Marvel beast.
But Neil Adams is somewhere going, it's my time.
How do you measure success? Hey everyone, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host Dave.
And John.
And JD, finally.
Yes, finally.
I may sound a little bit different, but my computer is not working, so I'm on my laptop. Do I sound different? I don't know.
Yes.
There's just a little bit of an echo because of,
Right, because I've got all the sound dampeners in my recording room, and I don't have time to bring all this stuff up and everything. Okay, so, hello.
So, JD, we'll start with you. You weren't here last week. You had other better things to do, apparently.
I made money.
Oh, well.
I had to work, man.
Money.
I'm a full-time freelance guy. I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from.
Look at you trying to be a responsible parent and husband.
Yes, just have to feed the child. They arrest you if you don't do that.
Right? Now you tell them.
Well, that explains a lot, Dave.
So okay, so you were busy working. Do anything interesting over the week?
We had our Greco-Roman state wrestling tournament. Had 8 state champions, couple runner-up, couple thirds.
Oh, cool.
Well, wrestling's good.
Very good, very nice.
Wasn't the big WrestleMania also like last weekend or something?
No, it was like a month ago.
Oh God! All right, that's how much I follow professional wrestling.
That's okay.
A podcast I listened to was just talking about it, but I realized it was an old recording. Now that you're saying it.
Hint, hint, you may want to bone up on your pro wrestling for you have 1 month.
Oh, you're right.
Why?
We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
John, you had a really busy weekend from my understanding.
Or not, depending on your point of view. No, yes. I was at AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C.
Awesome.
It was, yeah, fun. You know how many times I've heard that joke over the last 3 days? My God, it was old in the first 10 minutes. Yeah, it was good. First time we've been at that con. Interesting that the scuttlebutt is that it was like the first down year for that con. It must have been because they knew we were coming. And actually, all the cons seem to be down this year or on their way. So this is interesting industry news. But yeah, it was good. It's a very large floor. I got blisters walking it, and we got 5 interviews from this one, and we still haven't put out all the interviews from 2 weeks ago from the Great Philly. So you shall be granted a plethora of interviews over the next few weeks from us.
I think there's going to be a bonus episode or two very soon in our future. So
we're going to have to. Some of these interviews are actually time sensitive.
Well, that's not my fault.
Hey.
That's cool. Actually, I think one of the interesting things is you had talked to the guys who wrote Spencer and Locke while you were there.
Yes, yeah,
And,
things are moving quickly with that one apparently.
So what's really cool about that is you were talking to them, and then you emailed Matt about their comic, and before we knew it, Matt wrote actually a review on the website for the book, and
best review guy in comics, Matt Broom.
Yeah. Yes. It's a good thing he works for us and not the enemy. So
then he'd review us.
So you guys definitely should check that out at superheroespeak.com. Learn all about the book.
I do wholeheartedly say go check that out. There are very few comics. We interview so many people, and there are very few comics that sometimes you'll stumble across and realize is a real gem. This is one of those. That's all I have. Just go check it out.
So did you get the same feeling from this as you did when you read Hope?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
That is very high praise.
Different kind of feeling, because Spencer and Locke is what was his tag? His spiel is it's like Calvin and Hobbes mixed with Sin City.
Right.
And that's really all you need to know. Come on, you want to read it now, don't you?
Right. All I meant is, like, you and I both had the same thing. When you reread Hope, it's like, I want more of this, like, right away.
Oh, yeah, I know. I after the first few pages, and I realized that he had caught the spirit of Bill Watterson and then made everything, like, horrible. It was just, he's really, the writer is good. The art is awesome. They caught a really good artist. You gotta, knew right away that this was really, really, one of a kind.
Yes. So cool. Definitely check them out. The book is available from Action Lab. And, let's see real quick. It's, what were the names again? George, Mamakona? I don't even know how to say that name.
Oh my.
It's very, very, like, not English. And Jasmine Smith.
Yeah, I left all my notes upstairs next to the computer.
All right. So all that information's in the article. There'll be a link in the description below.
Yes.
Cool.
And David Pepos, Pepos is the writer. He's the guy I talked to.
Awesome. From Awesome Con. Yeah, and again, like you said, you sent them to me earlier. You got a bunch of interviews. We're going to get them out. So, keep your ear to the ground for those.
We're transmitting them through the ground now?
Yes.
Okay. Most people use, like, the internet, but all right.
Oh. Go, I hear they have the internet on computers now. All right.
Go. Come on.
So enough nonsense.
Run from that joke.
I actually had a busy weekend myself. Not as busy as you, John, and I wasn't earning money like JD, but no, we went on. My cousin,
Vinny.
Yeah, my cousin Vinny. No,
nice.
My cousin had a daughter. 10 months ago, and she had a lot of issues when she was born. She's actually still in the hospital, and his wife actually lost her job because of all the time she was spending at the hospital. So they did a fundraiser for them, and they had a charity bowling thing, and it was actually, like, really nice because I was shocked how many people came out to support and help them out. So, I just want to say thank you to all my friends and family that participated in that, and it was really cool to see that people do care sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, but that's enough of that. Speaking of people who care, I only brought one social media madness thing this week. I know, JD, you're disappointed.
Regret that joke.
And the only reason I bring this one up is of course, we talked about J.D. White had made a comment about Jean and Scott were never married, right? And we got into that whole conversation about the X-Men being weird and whatnot. Jordan White actually replied to us on Twitter. And he said, I didn't actually say that. I said that the Scott that is alive now is not the one who married her. She died in the Secret Wars and was then reincarnated. Or recreated, sorry. So okay, I will give you that, Jordan. But then that turned into a big, long kerfuffle discussion on our social media. And I am not going to go into it. Like, it was a whole bunch of back and forth about the history of the books and the characters and whatnot. I'm just going to say thanks to Jean Grey, Forever Buffy, on Twitter, and Lori Hyrup, who is at Lori Hyrup, Hyrup, for participating in the conversation. It was kind of cool to read it, and yeah, that's it. And of course, Jordan, thank you for clarifying your point. If you ever would like to clarify it more, just come on the show and talk to us. We'd love to have you.
The X-Men are still weird.
See, he's not going to come on now. Are you happy?
It's always been weird.
Mm-hmm.
The timelines are impossible to graph. There's no way.
Nope. Speaking of ungraphable timelines.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. We got our really big news of the week. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen.
The long night from Game of Thrones.
I'm binging it in the last week.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Twitter's been hard the last couple of days, guys.
Dude,
some slack.
At AwesomeCon, I cannot tell you, there were some of the tables there. The people had signs up that said no spoiler zone. I mean, people were in the 3 days I was there, I heard at least a few times people yelling at other people because they were talking spoilers near people who hadn't seen these yet.
Some dude got jumped outside a theater for doing Avengers spoilers.
Oh man, I was in the theater last night waiting outside the door because they were cleaning it. And there were other people that were sitting there talking to him like, oh God. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And they're like sitting there knowing that there's a line there waiting to go in talking about spoilers. It's like, sorry. Yeah, come on. Think, people.
All right. Are we done?
Yeah.
I feel expunged. That requires a shot.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are proud to announce that we have a winner for our first annual Nerd Madness competition.
I has a sad.
It was oh my God, I watched the poll. It went back and forth quite a few times on Friday, and we have a winner. So our final matchup was Into the Spider-Verse versus the Comic Book History of Professional Wrestling. And JD, who won?
That would be the Comic Books History of Professional Wrestling by Aubrey Sitterson and Chris Moore.
You dirty cheater.
Chris Moreno, excuse me.
Dirty cheater.
I will take credit for the cheating only up to a point, because at one point, Spider-Verse jumped up 60% to 40%. And at that point, I kind of admitted defeat to myself and stopped checking the poll. And I was shocked the next morning when I got up and saw that the babyface History of Pro Wrestling pulled the last second comeback off and got the dub.
This one got a lot of votes too.
It did. It was far and away the most votes we had of anything.
I kind of posted it on Facebook and a couple other places and said, hey, vote for the professional wrestling. So, you know, we talked about this, and it's the whole sweet Cinderella story, you know. I mean, honestly, it did so well, it deserved to win.
And Dave didn't like Spider-Verse.
Shh.
And now we have our. How many votes did you erase, Dave?
You can't erase votes. All you can do is ask people to vote.
We did have like 250 votes for this one. That's like far and away the most we've had. Gentlemen, overall, I'd say Nerd Madness was a success. I think we should do it again next year.
I was going to say the same thing, yeah.
And just so everyone knows, we have talked to Aubrey, and he will be coming onto the show the beginning of June. So, as JD alluded to earlier, I've got to brush up on my professional wrestling before we have him on, because we don't want JD to do all the talking.
Like the last time we had a wrestler on.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. The last time I watched wrestling, King Kong Bundy was a thing. So
King Kong Bundy passed away recently. It was quite sad.
I get that. He was apparently he was a very nice guy and all that, but awesome in the ring. It was fun to watch him.
All right. So before we get to our main event of the evening,
we got to hurry it up because I cost us time.
Well, that doesn't mean we cut the show short. That just means you're up later.
Yeah, but listening really want to hear this.
So anyway, just a couple quick news articles that do tie in to what we're about to talk about. Actually, I'm going to start with the second article first. I thought this was kind of interesting. All of the recording around Endgame was so secretive that Brie Larson did not know the Avengers were in the after credits scene of Captain Marvel.
So that wasn't Brie Larson in that cutscene? What'd they do? Like completely CGI her or something?
No, it was shot for Avengers.
It was shot. Not only that, like if you read the article, it was a green screen. She walked in, they told her to say her line, and then she was cut into that later on.
That belies one of the biggest problems with this kind of thing where it's so secretive that the actors can't even give a good performance because they don't even know how to act.
She's fine. She was fine in that scene.
It was
quick.
It's an after credits stinger scene to set up the next movie. It's not a huge deal. I will say though, it is interesting because, pardon me, I did see in one interview where a couple of them said, it's interesting because we're going to experience the movie the same time you guys did. Like they didn't even see a final cut until the premiere.
And I heard that they filmed 3 or 4 different endings or something, or
yes, apparently you heard that on the show actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Three or four different endings, and I actually heard something today where there are 2 completely different cuts of the movie. But I think we'll get into that more.
Why is there always a Donner cut?
We'll get into more of that, I think, a little later in the conversation. And then the other piece of news that I found interesting is, what's her name? Olsen.
Elizabeth Olsen.
Olsen.
Yes, Elizabeth Olsen was recently talking about the upcoming WandaVision TV show that's going to be on the Disney streaming app. And she said not only that the filming would begin starting this fall, but the show is set in the 1950s. I find that kind of interesting. What do you guys think?
I'm wondering if we're going to get the extent of her powers and what they really are, because they've been very ill-defined, to be quite honest with you. I did not know that until I just read this. So I don't know what to expect. I really like Elizabeth Olsen. I think she's super talented. I like what she did in the last film. I'm curious to see what they do with this. Paul Bettany's great too. So I'm intrigued.
But we can do spoilers, right? No?
Not yet. We're not to spoilers yet.
Okay, well, you know what I'm going to say, right? I mean, they're in the 1950s.
Oh, yeah, hold that.
Yeah, hold that thought. But you're right, the extent of her powers. Remember, this is the mutant that said no more mutants and wiped out the majority of the mutants on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
She changed reality and created House of M. She
and
is,
she can be a mutant now too.
yes. So she is one of the most powerful mutants in the Marvel universe. So it's like,
maybe she can do a reverse. Let there be mutants.
I'm kind of wondering.
That's a good idea. I wonder if they will do that.
I've been wondering that too, if that's how they're going to bring them in. So.
Hadn't thought of that.
So you guys are chomping at the bit. All right. So let's real quick. We're going to, obviously everyone, we're here to talk about a movie that came out this weekend called Endgame.
I thought we were talking about Hellboy.
Endgame sounds like Game of Thrones to me. I was going for the long night, but you know.
Stop it.
So real quick, here are some of the numbers from this weekend. The Rotten Tomatoes score, the critics score is at 96%. The audience score is at 92%. And this movie made $1.2 billion opening weekend, shattering every record.
Isn't that half of what Disney paid for Marvel 10 years ago?
Something like that.
That's
very close to half. Not only that, like, I mean, they're not to jinx it, but they're on the road to beat Avatar. So,
which is interesting.
Good.
Is that adjusted for inflation?
No.
I mean, I saw a lot of numbers, and a lot of them were prefaced with "this is not adjusted for inflation." So I don't know why they're not doing that, or what. But everybody's throwing numbers around, and I guess everybody's excited. I mean, it's going to break. I think it's going to break it anyway, regardless.
So,
but,
yeah. I mean, I think it's, if it keeps going, it'll blow everything away. So we'll see. All right. So real quick, let us do our non-spoiler reaction like we always do on the show. We will start with JD.
The Chef's Kiss. Beautiful. It's a beautiful film.
Okay.
That was classy.
Thank you.
That's so not fitting for this show.
I'm trying to class up the joint, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. All right, John.
I am going to give it the non-sarcastic golf clap.
There's no such thing. All golf claps are sarcastic.
No, in this case.
Not if you're actually at a golf course.
That's true.
So, okay. My reaction is, it is like a slice of pizza. A sloppy slice of pizza. It was still really good, just kind of messy. Oh, that's a pizza with too much sauce. Really
now
good.
I'm giving the sarcastic golf clap to you.
So
I actually had a pizza with too much sauce last week, and it was quite disturbing. So I know I get your analogy.
Yes, thank you. So all right, boys and girls, that's it. At this point, because this movie in itself, you cannot talk about this movie at all without spoiling it, because so much happened in this movie. There's so much to unpack that from this point on, there are spoilers. If you have not seen Marvel's Avengers Endgame and you do not want to be spoiled, please stop the podcast now and come back after you watch it. If you have seen it or you don't care about spoilers, here we go.
You know you can talk about without spoilers. I've heard a bunch of reviews. They just can't use nouns, verbs, or adverbs, or prepositions.
Or adjectives.
Let's be listening to this show. You've seen this film by now.
Exactly. This is true. That is, if you're a fan of the show, you've seen it. You know the drill at this point. Okay, so how do we start? Okay, everyone's doing this. Okay, actually, I want to preface this whole conversation with something, guys, and I'm completely serious with what I'm about to say. Okay, I guarantee the majority of reviews that this movie is getting, print and on podcasts, is going to be a lot of lip service. Okay, let's be honest. There's a lot of great moments in this movie. But I think we owe it to our fans to be a little critical of some of the issues with the movie.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So we'll get to all that. So let's all start with, what was your favorite moment in the movie? And I'll let you go first, John.
Jeez, favorite moment. I don't know. You go with the one that's most rousing, which is like, Cap sitting there all by himself on the field of death, and all of a sudden you hear Cap on your 6.
No,
on
that's
your
not
left.
on your left.
On your left or whatever. Yeah. And then it's literally in the theater that I was in, people were just like sitting up and going, yeah, and just, and that was a late night showing, and it was packed, which I don't think has ever happened in that theater. So on a Sunday, but that's one. I mean, geez, what else?
Okay, well,
I don't know.
said...
I'll go with that for now. Okay. I gotta think through this.
All right, JD.
It's a 3-hour movie.
It is a 3-hour movie, and that was time number 3 that I believe I cried when I saw it. Like I cried 7 times. 7 times. That was time number 4, actually. My favorite part of the movie would be the very end. I loved it.
The dance?
Yep.
Okay.
100%. I mean, do we want to go into it? Like, how deep are we willing to go right now?
Like, as deep as you can. Just go.
I love the fact, this is where Dave and I, we had a pregame where we discussed some of our initial thoughts.
Yeah, enough time for me.
I loved it. I absolutely loved the ending. I like that they gave Cap a happy ending, especially the way they set us up. We are led to believe the entire marketing campaign, let's be real, is what it was, of this film, led us to believe that Captain America was going to die.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He doesn't die. He finishes the job, returns the stones, and then decides to live out life with Peggy Carter.
And they had to do that to balance out the other problems.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. They did. Because it would have been... Mm-hmm. So I love the fact that we got...
You cut out for like half a second.
Oh, sorry.
You said
I love the...
No, you said it wouldn't have been, and that's when you cut out.
I don't remember what I said after.
Okay.
I said it would have been too depressing of a movie.
Yes.
I love the fact that this movie gave Captain America a happy ending, and that he survives and looks an awful lot like Joe Biden as he's knocking on the door of 100. But at the very, very end of that movie, that made me laugh. But I loved it. I liked making Sam the new Cap. I can live with. I want to see what they do with it. Wouldn't have been my first choice, but I adore that last scene when they're in the 1950s and him and Peggy Carter are dancing together. It's good cinema, man.
And without any words.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Dave, what about you?
Wow, it's tough to pick. I think I have to go with Cap is Worthy.
That was pretty awesome, too.
So, I mean, it's so funny that all three of us picked Captain America moments as our favorite moments, which is, it's a little unfair to the true hero of the movie.
Yeah, which one? I mean, there were actually several.
So I mean, I think, if we're going to be completely honest, this was a Cap and Tony Stark movie. This, there was a lot of people in it, and a lot of stuff happened, but I kind of feel those were the two main guys through the whole movie.
I surprised you say that, because I truly think that Chris Hemsworth stole the show.
Oh, he did.
Well, I was going to say, I think if we're going to talk about our favorite moments, we should talk about what's our least favorite thing from the movie. And for me, it was what they did to Thor. I don't think that was fair. They turned him into a joke. I really felt like they made him the comedy relief of the movie, and it was like, oh, that really bothered me.
But
because
he was
this
dealing
is
with
because
grief. I mean,
there's dealing with grief, and they turned him into a beer guzzling idiot, and it was just like
they turned him into the Big Lebowski, is what they did.
Exactly.
Literally, they even made a joke referencing the Big Lebowski.
And it's like this should be the swan song for at least the 6 initial Avengers.
But it's not. He's going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy now.
Right. And I think that I disagree. I think that Thor's not a joke. Thor is the character who actually has the most development of a character. Like, if you go back to the early Thor movies, there's not much character there. There really isn't. Like, Thor 1, a movie I really enjoy, is him learning how to be humble. That's kind of corny. Thor 2, there's no character arc whatsoever. Like, it's not till Ragnarok that we really tap into that he really starts to develop a character. And Chris Hemsworth really, it's his 5th time out, gets comfortable in the skin. And in this movie, Thor has to overcome something. Like, this is the only time Thor's actually had a hero moment.
He's failed. He failed completely, and he feels it this time.
Right. I mean, too often I think we put our heroes on the pedestal where if anything negative impacts them, we get defensive of it, and we're like, no, this can't happen. He's better than this. Yes, that's the point. He was better than it, but he had to get his confidence back. And they actually redeemed Thor 2, The Dark World, by doing something with Rene Russo, another criminally underused actress from those first Thor movies. Like, that's another great moment, is when Thor's trying to get his confidence back. Like, because think about it, he has all these powers. He's a god among men, but in the face of Thanos, he was impotent. So what is his purpose? I have no purpose. And I loved it. I loved the setup. I loved everything about Chris Hemsworth in this movie. Like I said, he's the only, Stark has his arc, but I don't think anyone gets the complete character journey where you have to redeem themselves quite the way that Thor does in this movie. And that moment, like John said, when he's worthy again, is fantastic.
Mm.
Like, I get where you're coming from, but I actually think that's the strength. I think that I see it as one of the strengths of the film and one of the strengths of the character.
I mean, they had to show character development from a lot of the team for how they were dealing with this. And Scarlett Johansson was another one where they were showing, that after the 5 years later, that she's there trying to hold everything together, and also dealing with Hawkeye turning into what he was. So Ronan, yeah. So it's like, a lot of them had to do a lot more character development than they have in the previous ones in the movies where they had more time to do that.
I think they balanced it so well too, where all 6 of the Avengers plus Nebula get time and get their chance to shine and get moments. Like, granted, it was a 3-hour movie. There was a lot of space to do it, but I think everybody had a chance to really do something and make an impact.
Okay, so then what is a moment that you didn't like in the movie, or something, just anything about the movie that you didn't like?
That I didn't like? I'm not sure how I feel about them not resetting the timeline back. I thought it would have been, now that being said, I thought if they would have reset it back, I think it might, I would have made it cheap. I would have felt they would have made it cheap. But I think there's a lot of questions coming out of it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's right. I think when I first left the movie, I didn't know how to feel about that. The second time I saw it with my wife, I was looking at it from more of a writer perspective. And then I went, wow, there's a lot of fertile ground to tell stories.
Mm.
Like, there's a lot of stuff that has sprung up. Like, there's new types of crime organizations that rose in a wave of, like, half the people are gone. There's a lot of people that have to deal with the fact that family they thought was gone is now suddenly back. Like,
and at the same age, not age.
Yeah, and not the same age. And I thought it was interesting that all of Peter's friends seemed, well, we saw Ned, but the vibe I got was that a lot of the people in his school were swiped away by Thanos, and they're all still teenagers.
And his aunt too, apparently.
I didn't even think of, I didn't even think about that if she was, but she does look the same age.
Mm.
But I mean, like, I think it'll be a weakness of this film if future films don't use that missing 5 years better. And I think until we know what phase 4 plan is, I can't speak if it's going to be something I like or don't like. But I want to see him do it because like I said, there's a lot of potential. There wasn't a lot in this movie that I didn't like, to be honest with you. Like I quite enjoyed it, and I've seen it twice.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of that, I mean, again, it's hard to know. I can't think of anything I didn't like per se, but there were some things that I wanted to see. Like, okay, we got Professor Hulk. I was hoping for World Breaker Hulk. I wanted to see retribution for him getting the beating before, you know?
That was a lot of complaints. I saw a lot of people complaining about that. Why did he not get his moment against Thanos?
He's the one who fixed everything. He used the gauntlet. Like he's the one who snapped his fingers.
Oh yeah.
And I get that, but Thanos beat the crap out of Hulk in the beginning of the first one. So you want to see him get at least 1 or 2 hits in on Thanos.
Well, this is just because we're all bloodthirsty, you know. It's just, I mean, I think we all got enough of retribution. I mean, we wanted to see that, but what we got was Captain America walking over, picking up Mjolnir, and then, you know, giving like a 45-second just utter beatdown of Thanos, which was very satisfying, if I may say so.
And I guess I love what they did with Hulk because it was pretty much the Peter David Hulk,
yes,
which is the Hulk I grew up with, and I'm partial to that Hulk. But again, maybe it's my childhood, so I dig that story, and I like that. I like that we got the smart Hulk, and plus I think that if it's just all retribution, I mean, we had that from the big 3 Avengers. They were all seeking retribution on Thanos for some reason. I think it would have just been too much the same story. If that's what it did.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the big 3. I mean, like Scarlet Witch got her moment to be pissed.
She did.
And
she did. That's true.
Yeah, and she did some damage too. So I would have liked to see more Captain Marvel. I mean,
yeah, that's interesting because I thought they would have done more with her, and I'm kind of glad they didn't because I thought the big nerd complaint would have been, oh, they just Mary sued her. She fixed everything. And she really didn't.
So there's a rumor that's been floating around for a while. It was started by somebody who worked on the production that there's 2 completely different cuts of the movie. And one is Captain Marvel Heavy and one is Captain Marvel Light. And we obviously got the Captain Marvel Light version in the theater.
So we do get a Donner cut. I mean, do we know if they're going to release it? I mean, that would be nice.
I don't think it's ever going to see the light of day, and I think it's because the plan from the beginning was the release. They wanted to make Captain Marvel the face of Phase 4, right? And that is why her movie got shoehorned in to introduce her between the 2 Avengers movies. Again, this is all rumor. I don't know how true this is. But because there was a lot, I mean, I agree. We never said we don't feel that there was a controversy, but there was a lot of controversy online about Brie Larson and Captain Marvel and fans being upset that she might come and defeat Thanos after, 10 years of the Avengers building up to it. So of all that scuttlebutt online, they decided to go with the Captain Marvel Light version of the movie.
So I'm going to counter that because it's funny. It says I read this article today from what's his first name? The writer Stephen McFeely wrote Newsarama did a piece today. I just sent you guys the link.
Okay.
Where they asked the question. The question is asked him why there wasn't more Black Panther and Captain Marvel, and he said, and this is his words, because there wasn't time to adjust. It wasn't like we could say, Harry, put more Shuri in there. We started filming Infinity and Wargame, and then Black Panther started, and we were still making the movie.
Oh.
They said the same thing with Captain Marvel. They said they shot Brie Larson's Avengers stuff before they shot the Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And that's from the writer of the film, who said they said that this movie, and he said this movie had to focus on the 6 Avengers to close their story out.
And Captain Marvel, I mean, even that, regardless, they did give her a...
yeah, she had a moment.
Yeah, she got a moment or two. I mean, that was a pretty awesome moment. And, okay, heavy spoiler here. I mean, when they were bombarding the war zone, trying to just take everybody out, Thanos just said, look, just just fire at everything that moves. At our troops or the Avengers, just take them all out. And then, this ship is sitting there in orbit, bombarding it, and then all the guns turn, and they're like, okay, where are they firing? And it's like something's entering orbit, and we're all sitting. And again, in my theater, they were like, "Oh yeah!" One guy's like, "Here she comes, man!" And then she comes through and just takes the entire ship out. I mean,
this
that
goes
was pretty good.
This goes along with what I kind of said about the Captain Marvel movie, in the sense that, like, I felt to me that movie felt rushed, and then now it felt like she was a plot device in this movie.
The whole movie's a plot device.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she was used to move 2 parts of the story forward, and that's it. Like there's no character development for her.
It's not
her movie.
Yeah, and every character is.
But there was no
in here was used to move the plot along.
So was
what
Spider-Man.
What I'm saying is there should have been a handoff of some kind to her in this movie, just like the handoff we get at the end of the movie. I think there should have been something to her as well.
But the focus wasn't her. The focus was the interplay between Iron Man and Captain America, and seeing their story arcs pretty much resolve after 10 freaking years.
Yeah, and I'm good with waiting on that. Like, if she's going to take more of a leadership role, I want to see that come organically and not just some
fake handoff.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I don't know how much as much as I like Falcon, I don't know if I bought that scene. Like, I want to see what they do with it. There's a Falcon Winter Soldier TV series coming on Disney Plus, so I imagine it'll be handled there. But again, I want to see what they do with it.
Can we talk about one scene that I think, and I've been listening to reviews for the last 12 hours. There's one scene that seems to be, people seem to have forgotten that happened. It was when Bruce Banner was sitting there debating with the Ancient One about getting the Time Stone.
Okay. Okay. Yes, we can talk about it, and go ahead. Say what you're going to say, and then I'll say what I want to say.
Well, no, it's just I think that was resolved pretty well. I mean, considering it seemed, I don't know if this was a Chekhov's gun that they threw in on purpose and they planned it this way, or they just realized when they were writing this that, hey, yeah, he just gave up the stone, and that would mean something to the Ancient One, that he had a plan that she didn't know about, and because he's supposed to be better than her and she knows that and knows him, even though it's 5 years earlier. I mean, it all seemed to come together pretty well.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, that characterization makes perfect sense. She saw the potential in Doctor Strange, and that's why she trained him.
And saw it way before. This was 5 years before he was going to be.
Listen, can I finish my statement? She saw the potential in Doctor Strange. That's why she trained him. She made sure he had to humble himself. Like, again, to me, probably the best character arc in any of the MCU movies is Doctor Strange's origin movie. And the key thing is, she says she can't see past the point of her own death into the future. So she didn't know he was going to give up the stone. So when she heard Banner say, no, he gave up the stone, and she knew him because she saw him in his future and that she was going to train him, she knew him well enough to know, like, well, if he gave it up, must have been important. But there's something else about that scene. So here we go. Oh, God. The messiness of time travel and introducing it in any genre, right? And we're not going to argue concepts and whatnot. Everyone's got a different way that they handle time travel. They make fun of the Back to the Future movies, blah, 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 blah.
And just about every other time travel movie you can think of. Except for one, but I'll add that in after. Go ahead.
There's a basic concept of the idea of changing the past, i.e., going back to kill Hitler as a baby. The reason you can't go back and kill Hitler as a baby is that if you kill him and erase him from history, you erase your desire to go back and kill him in the first place.
It's a paradox.
And then you're creating a paradox, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to get around that, they basically try to say you can't change the past in the movie. And then they further explain it in that scene with the Ancient One and Hulk, Professor Hulk, where if you take the time stones out of their place and thing, you're creating branches. So that's how it's, every time you make a new choice, you go back and make a new choice, you're creating a new branch in time.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like, as you were saying, JD, the idea was if you put the stones back, then you're remerging the timeline back and correcting everything. But, like, they do that, they explain that, and then they throw it all away by the end of the movie.
No, they didn't really, because they went back and gave the time and got the time stones back to where they belong.
But it's not just the stones; it's everything that they did in the movie. That's like makes it so messy. It's like, when you start thinking about all the things, like
they screwed up,
like
Loki.
Exactly. They have now, that is online. I've seen about 30 people reference it. They're now calling that the Loki paradox.
Yeah.
So based on the way they handled time travel in this, Loki created his own branch, and he is now somewhere with the Tesseract.
Yeah. And now here's the thing.
Also a Disney Plus TV show coming up.
Yeah, exactly. They got that in, I'm sure.
It makes me wonder, is that what the Loki TV show is going to be?
Hell yes.
And he's going to show up in this universe again. Because if he's got the Tesseract,
which allows you to, it's the space stone. It lets you transport.
Yep. But here's the thing. Well, now there's a problem. Because if we're talking alternate universes, the Infinity Stones are not supposed to work in universes other than the ones they came from.
No, it's not necessarily alternate universes as alternate timelines. It's different realities within the same universe.
But what is that other than an alternate timeline? I mean, you're talking when the Council of Reeds figured that out. But the Council of Reeds is made of reeds from different timelines, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Right, and several of those reeds had Infinity Gauntlets, and those gauntlets would not work in the timelines of other reeds. So there's the one little thing the nitpicky thing. But what I was getting at was when they were making fun of the timeline of us humans, our understanding of timelines, and the movies that we made about it. I mean, they mentioned everything, including like a really obscure one, Time After Time, which had like Mary Steenburgen in it. It was made like in the, I think, early 70s.
Isn't that Christopher Reeve? Or is that something else?
I don't know. No, it wasn't Christopher Reeve. Maybe it was. I don't know.
He's in a time travel movie too. I can't remember which one it was though.
Yeah, that's another time something. It's got time. They all have it. But the thing is, the one they did not mention that follows exactly their explanation of how the time streams work is actually from Dragon Ball Z. Because in Dragon Ball Z, that's how time works. You can go back in time, and you can do stuff, but that will not fix or change the time you came from. And you can go back forward in time, and it'll still be as bad as it was before you went backward. So it's like you're not really going backward and forward in time. You're going backward and forward between time streams.
Right.
So you can go back and warn people that like androids are coming and they have to destroy them. But when you go back to your time where you came from, nothing's changed. So it's just a funny little factoid that like an anime, one of the biggest animes ever, really, is the one that they drew their time stream. And it was also funny that they're making fun of all the humans and all the aliens. You know, Nebula and Rocket, and they're all sitting there nodding, going, "Yeah, what's wrong with you humans? Don't you have any idea about quantum mechanics?" And yeah, Rocket did quip once. He looked at Tony and said, "Look, you're only a genius on this planet."
Yes. So it's one of those things where. And we were, JD and I were kind of talking about some of this offline with the time travel crap is, and I didn't mention this, but my one thing is like, if they hadn't killed Thanos in the beginning, right? Now follow me with this. What they could have done is we know that they go back in time and Nebula's neural network mixes with Nebula's neural network of the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they can see the other Nebula's memories, right? Because they have her chained up or whatever. And that's so that's when he learns what they're up to, right? They're getting the stones to undo what he already did, right? And he sees that he killed himself. Or they killed him, right? In the past. Or the future to him. I need a map just for this conversation. Where I thought they were going, and I thought this would have been the perfect way to do it, is don't bring Thanos from the past into, which is technically our future, but our present. Have it so Thanos saw that and he remembered it. And he used the stones to create a duplicate of him that they killed. And then that's actually him in the present coming to stop them from using the stones.
But again, that doesn't match how they're presenting time travel and how it works. Because if they did tell the one in the past, that still would not affect their present.
I guess. I still think it probably, to me,
just call it all timey-wimey and get it over with.
Well, I did say this to you, JD, and I kind of feel like it's the same kind of thing. Like, people are going to bring up questions like this. You know it's going to happen. There are people that are even far nerdier than us that watch these movies and are like, wait a minute, what about this? What about that? How come when Nebula shot her past self, she didn't die?
Right,
all
exactly.
that crap.
And that's all explained by the fact that you cannot affect your own timeline.
Right, and then people are going to ask, and I just kind of feel like you're going to get the same explanation that people started asking when One More Day happened in the comics, where Mephisto erased Peter and MJ's marriage as if they were never married, and when people started saying, well, wait a minute, when Peter did this, he was inspired by Mary Jane, or he did this with Mary Jane. How does that affect everyone else in the MCU and all the other past events? And the writer just said, it's magic. You know, like, oh, it's just a timey-wimey thing. Like, don't think about it too much.
Because reasons.
And I just feel like my worry is that now that they've introduced it, there's nothing to stop them from using it again, and it can start making things really messy. More messy than this movie was. Am I alone in thinking that?
For me, yeah.
I don't think that they'll go through that again.
But why?
Well,
they usually writers, when they start using time travel, they put a heavy price on it so that so people don't use time travel because they know that there's a price for using it. There was no real price for it. So what's to stop the next writer of something to go, hey, we have introduced time travel in the MCU, I'm going to use it here.
Kevin Feige saying we're not doing that again?
Maybe.
That's the answer.
Or maybe they introduce some kind of problem that comes up later from this. I mean, right now, you've got Loki and a Tesseract wandering around the time stream. I'm sure that's a big enough price right there and then. If he starts messing with things.
He's got the space at the time.
Oh, well, space, what? He'll go, can he use that?
No, he said, what John said was wandering around a time stream.
Yeah.
A time branch with the Tesseract, which is the Space Stone, yeah.
See, and all I see, you guys say these things, and all I see is just storytelling potential. Like there are conflicts that arise, but because conflicts arise, you have potential story out of this. And again, I always lean back into, how do you kill a vampire? There's no such thing as vampires. There's no such thing as time travel. The rules of time travel are whatever they want them to be. Because there's no such thing as time travel. So whatever they say is the rule of time travel, that's what it is. And it might not be a satisfying answer, but like you said, Doctor Who does this stuff all the time, and it never really affects anything. Like I say, it's all what it is. Totally a plot device. Anytime you use time travel in a story, it's a plot device, and the plot acts how the writer wants it to. Like,
agreed.
I don't get hung up on this minutia that the writers are just using it to tell a story.
I feel like because of the way they handled time travel, you're now opening up a multiverse scenario.
Fantastic. I'm excited by that potential.
Yeah, in that case, I think JD's right. It's like, okay, well, this gives you a hell of a lot of things that can happen at any given point.
Yeah,
now.
maybe it does open a multiverse. Maybe that's how we get X-Men. Maybe that's how we get the Fantastic Four.
Or maybe you get cameos from Tony Stark.
Yeah, I mean, like, all I see. I mean, yes, it does. It's not neat and clean. I think things not being neat and clean makes it more fertile ground to be imaginative.
Okay.
But again, I don't get hung up on this stuff. It doesn't bug me.
So, any other interesting scenes you want to talk about, or? Because I mean, we could sit here for almost longer than the movie itself. Actually.
Okay. So my only, and again, it's just my issue is just that it's messy. Like, it doesn't really ruin the movie for me. I just felt the time travel was messy. However, an actual real criticism I have, and JD, you've already kind of countered this with talking about the development of Thor, but do you feel the middle act dragged on a little bit? Like they could have shortened that up?
Me, no, but I have heard other people say that. I have heard other people say they wish it was shorter. I did not feel a drag in the movie, and I saw it twice, but I'm so invested in character that the character moments did a good job carrying me through. So I didn't feel it.
I'd say that every time I started to get that itch of, okay, well, can we start to move things along? Then things moved right along. So I think they got the balance just right on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I really liked the scene between Hulk and the Ancient One. Like, I felt like that was some necessary exposition. Like, that was also one of the complaints, is not only was it dragged out, it was really a lot of exposition explaining things. But I don't know. I kind of liked the moment between the two of them. But I did feel like, again, and maybe because I wasn't happy with how the whole way they treated Thor, I felt that part dragged on a little bit.
That's so funny you say it, because I feel like I could watch another hour.
And I kind of feel like, the Tony, Cap, and Ant-Man scene in New York was there to set up something else. I honestly think, the more I'm thinking about it, the Loki paradox was done on purpose.
Yeah, set up this TV show.
Yeah, and it's just like, because the way they fail is so stupid, in all honesty. Like, the whole, and again, this also goes back to something that we've talked about before in comics that happens a lot, is changing a characterization to fit a scene. Hulk would have never walked down the steps. He would have jumped out the window.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Would he? I mean, all that destruction, I guess that would be the time to jump out a window.
Right. It wouldn't matter at that point. Like, why? Why would walking down that many steps takes patience? The one thing the Hulk does not have is patience.
Well, we noticed that because he kept yelling, "All these stairs!"
But
it was hysterical.
But it's funny. It does create, but it creates a character moment, so that the motivations are like the character's motivations create the scene, you know. And it is based on coincidence, but the vast majority of fiction is based on coincidence.
Right. I just kind of felt like, I don't know. I felt that was a little hackneyed. Like, there could have been so many other reasons why he dropped the case. You know, it didn't have to be Hulk coming. out of the door after he walked down the steps, you know?
And I think it does work with that because especially the character relationships between the Avengers, they aren't always on the same page. You know, and that's a Marvel thing too. Is like they don't always get along. They don't always say the right things. They're very human relationships between super people. And I think it worked. I'm not going to argue with you that something couldn't better or more creative couldn't have been done. I think they played it for a laugh to set things up. And I think in that way it did work. It's a criticism. It's a valid criticism. I don't think it bothered me that much, but I get where you're coming from.
And that's actually another criticism I've heard about the movies, and it goes back to the Thor humor. And I know Chris Hemsworth is dying to be a comedic actor. Like, it just feels like that's really his calling. He just happens to be someone who looks like Thor. Is that there are people, I've seen this criticism of a lot of the Marvel movies, especially the later ones. It's all the jokes. Like, there's a moment and then there's a joke. There's a moment and then there's a joke. You know, so you don't,
I'm so glad you brought this up. Keep going.
So that, you know, again, the opposite you end up with, Justice League, where it's dour the whole time. But yeah, like, so my question is, do you guys think that is a valid criticism? And it also made me think of the Thor. I wasn't sure if the Thor from Avengers 1 would have used Mjolnir to kickstart Tony's heart and go, ooh, I didn't know if that was going to work. Like, that felt a little too jokey for that Avengers movie, but timeline. But go ahead. Do you guys think there's too many jokes?
No, I don't, because Marvel has kind of, I don't think they started out with this in mind, but it became what separated their movies, is the fact that they're fun. And too often, and I think this is I'm going to take a quick tangent for one. A comic came out last week, Heroes in Crisis number 8, I believe, where, I don't know if you Tom King, a guy who I usually like a lot, wrote a story where a damaged superhero inadvertently kills a bunch of others, and he's trying to cover up, and it's Wally West. And it hit me really hard because I really like that character. At some point in the 80s, people got this idea that that comics had to be more serious and grown up, and we couldn't have fun with it anymore. And the movies in this past decade have done a really great job of shaking that trope. And I usually don't use trope as a bad word, but in this case I am, because it's especially the earlier DC movies where everything had to be so solemn and serious. Like, the focus is so much on the super that we lose focus on the hero. And I've had it with comics like this, where Tom King wanted to tell this story about damaged people, so we had to graft all these problems onto Wally West. A character that didn't have that, because he wanted to tell this story. So he takes a character that I loved a lot and had to make him a murderer because he had to tell a story for something he wanted to feel. Then I love Brad Meltzer as a writer, but having Dr. Light as a rapist doesn't make those stories better. Right? We take this stuff so seriously because as comic fans, I'm not saying us in particular, you guys in particular, but there's so many of them that are defensive about the fact that we like superheroes, that we feel the need to graft on all these things that take away from the entire point of it. And that is heroics. And that stuff has to be fun. Like, you can have serious moments, and I'm fine with that. But I would much rather be into a story where maybe there's a few too many jokes, maybe it's a few too lighthearted, than I have to watch someone I'm supposed to love as a hero murder people. You know?
It's so funny. And I don't think we've really had this conversation since you've been on the show, or maybe we talked about it once before since you've been on, but I know we've had this conversation several times with creators, especially in the earlier days of this podcast. So what happened in the 80s? You got The Watchmen, which was critically acclaimed, a very dark and adult story, right? And then The Killing Joke and The Dark Knight Returns.
Right.
They are 3 comics that define the 80s.
Correct.
you have the dark, super dark, serious side of Batman, and then the other side, I think you had some of the extreme characters who started out in the 80s, but that's another story. Yes, so then it was, then 89 Batman came out, which, if you look at it today, is fairly hokey, compared to the Batman movies of recent. But at the time, it was like, oh my God, look at how serious this is, because what we had to compare it to before was the 66 Batman. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, we got to this point in the 80s where you've got to take these characters super serious, or you're making fun of them.
Yeah, and I think that what made those stories great was that they stood out. They were different. And then every story had to be Watchmen. And I think that's my big criticism specifically of Dan DiDio's DC universe, is everything is trying to ape Alan Moore and Frank Miller. Everything has to be serious. Everything has to be so heavy. Everyone has, the only emotion we're allowed to deal, the only emotional resonance we're allowed to have as comic fans is death. Everything revolves around death. Everything revolves around a character dying. And the Marvel movies, more so than Marvel Comics even, has provided us chances to explore other emotions, other character studies. It's been more about people than it is about events. Like, what drives comic sales? It's the event. Why are people going to these movies? One, they're better than the comics. They really are. And it's because it's about people, and people crack jokes.
Yep.
You know?
And especially in stressful situations, because that's how you relieve stress.
Correct.
In that kind of thing, you know?
Correct. And it's how you take the tension off. It's how you take the edge off the audience. It's how you keep them along. It's like Indiana Jones. They're trying to stop Nazis, for God's sakes.
Yep.
And what are we doing? We're cracking jokes and we're having fun, and it's swashbuckling.
And that's the thing too. Like, no one complained when Han Solo cracked jokes in the Star Wars movies.
Right.
No one complained about the humor in the Indiana Jones movies. No one complained about the comedy in the Back to the Future movies, you know, or the Ghostbusters movies. But yet, you know, today it's like, and then after 10 years, there are people who are still saying too many jokes, and it's like, but it's worked. Like,
and it does work. And I think part of it too is when something becomes super uber cool to the point where it's no longer, these characters no longer belong to the nerd community. They're part of the fabric of society now, and they really are. And so there's a bit of a loss thing, I think, in some cases. Mm-hmm. And I do think a lot of it is, there's some nerds that have the Arrested Development syndrome going on, where sometimes they feel they have to defend their hobby. And it's like, look, no, it's not kid stuff. It's adult. It's serious. And I kind of felt like that too until a lot. And I think maybe having a little boy that adores these characters and every day he pretends to be a different superhero has let me see them in a different light, to the point where, you know, there can be different versions of these characters that exist, but at the same time, you know, maybe mainstream superheroes don't need the gratuitous violence. I mean, if everything is Watchmen, then what's Watchmen?
Exactly. Just another superhero movie.
Right. And it was never supposed to be. It was never supposed to be that.
It's interesting because I totally agree with your saying, but at the same time, then the Bill Maher comments play in the back of my mind. And it's like, but again,
he's a jaded prick.
But then again, not being super serious being adult doesn't mean it has to be super serious either.
I agree with you, but that's what we do. Like, that's what comics people specifically have done to make it serious. Like, look at any time something big happens in comics. What does it revolve around? Someone died. Like, it's always a touchdown. Someone died. Oh, it's a new quarter. We need to get the sales up on a book. Kill that guy. Mm-hmm. Make a big deal out of it. That's the only emotion we're allowed to resonate with. It's always death. That's how it's like, that's our default reaction. Whenever something that's big has to happen, somebody's got to die. Somebody's got to suffer. And drama is based on that. But there's more.
Thanks, Death of Superman.
I think it's even more than that, because even that played out. That had a plan. Like, they were never going to keep him dead.
Yes,
like,
but it does feel like since then, that's
I agree.
always been what the big thing is.
Okay, we're off the rails here now. We've got.
And hold on, I
don't think we are.
I don't think we are either. And to bring it back to talking about the movie, that's one of the things that I've heard. Like, I actually listened to 2 podcasts today that recorded before the movie came out, that were hype episodes for this movie, right? And in the one, they kept they were like, okay, so who do you think's going to die in this movie? Because again, here you go. This is the big event revolved around 11 years of movies here, and somebody's got to die.
Yeah,
like that's the whole thing. Why couldn't it end it with nobody died?
I think they could have, but to counter that, no one really until Endgame, we really hadn't had to deal much with deaths, and I think the movies have done a good job not making. So I think that it counted. Like, these deaths in this movie had resonance to it because we haven't gone to that 1,000 times.
Hold on.
Sure.
Somebody. Okay, go ahead.
I'm not done. What did I say was my favorite part of the whole movie? Was the happy ending.
Yes.
Was that they did have death, and it stung a lot because, like, when my wife and I went and saw it, the guy said she had a little kid sitting next to her, a 7-year-old, who, when Tony Stark dies, is grabbing his mom and crying, and it made me think of when I was 7 and seeing Transformers the movie for the first time.
Oh my God, yeah.
And yeah, I was thinking my generation learned how to cope with death from Optimus Prime. This one's going to learn from Tony Stark.
Yep.
And I think, I'm not saying we shouldn't have death ever. I'm saying it's got to be something. It can't be at every time. Now, if the Marvel movies start being nothing but the massacre, it becomes the mutant massacre, where we're doing nothing but mowing down superheroes for the next 10 movies, we've gone too far.
Well, in the next Avengers movie that the USS Enterprise will blow up again, right?
Though I have.
I mean, that's basically what it is, right? They did that exactly with the Star Trek franchise. They kept blowing up the Enterprise after the first time when it was really impactful.
I get what you mean. That's a great comparison.
And that's the thing too, Lo. If you think about it, they've killed somebody in every Avengers movie.
Yeah,
and it's
that's
like,
true.
yeah,
He died in 2.
Quicksilver.
Yeah, Age of Ultron.
That's
but he was kind of a throwaway. It wasn't like a major. He was like, hey, look, here's Quicksilver. Hey, there goes Quicksilver.
And I feel the same way about Coulson, to be honest with you.
Well,
if you watch The Funeral, still dead in the Marvel universe, cinematic universe.
In the what unit? What are you calling it?
The
now?
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, okay.
Coulson, still dead.
I kind of feel like we're now in the Marvel Kelvin universe, but that's a whole other story.
Oh, God.
Can I say Kelvin? No.
Oh, no.
All right, so let's talk about death real quick. So we had in the last one, we had Gamora was killed and Vision, 2 of the main characters, and a bunch of people dusted. Okay. Spoiler, they all came back to life.
Not all of them. Technically, Gamora is still dead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me finish my point. I forgot. Also, there was one more in the last one. It was Loki at the beginning of the movie. And this one, we got Black Widow, Iron Man, and not really killed, but Tony Cap is gone because now he's an old man. So, do you think any of these deaths will be reversed?
No.
No?
No. See, that's it. Very simple. No. I mean,
I think Vision. I think there's a whole TV show about that.
Thank you.
It's literally called WandaVision.
I thought that was kind of like she wears glasses.
No, it's about Wanda and Vision.
I don't know. Okay, fine. But
He's
And
an android, though. So
and Vision has been killed many times in the comic books and been brought back.
That in itself is a trope.
Yes.
Okay, but he's an android. You can put him back together again. That's easy.
Agreed.
All right.
Okay. What about Black Widow?
I think she did.
Is she?
I think so.
Is ScarJo? Because the one thing I did not expect was ScarJo was like finished with the franchise. I didn't hear anything about her.
There are still a lot of rumors floating around that they are making a solo Black Widow movie.
I think this is why we haven't heard anything about a solo Black Widow movie.
But here's okay. Let's talk about Black Widow for a minute. Here's a question, right? So, you have to give up a soul for the Soul Stone, right? And of course, the Thanos kills Gamora to get the Soul Stone, and Black Widow sacrifices herself so Hawkeye can get the Soul Stone in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
We also know, without a lot of to-do and explanation, Cap went and put all of them back. When you put the Soul Stone back, do you get a soul back?
I don't know. Does it collect interest too? I mean,
you know what I'm saying? He went back in time to put the Soul Stone back. Like, we don't know what happened. They did not show that. We don't know what happened when he went on that planet and put the Soul Stone back. So there is potential, as JD would say, when you do stuff like this, it creates writing potential. There is a potential to bring her back.
And the Soul Stone has the Soul Universe in it or something, or
they haven't really gotten into that in this. That was more clear in the comic. They haven't really touched that in.
I know, but they could introduce it, and that would be the way that the soul comes back. I guess
Could be.
Okay, so that's Black Widow.
Hope not,
Gamora is back.
Is she? Kinda?
Well, she is. I mean, they got around it.
Yeah,
they cheated.
Quill's looking at the
he was looking for her. He was already searching for her. That's what they're going to do.
Here's officially missing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my question on that, on the whole Gamora thing, and it goes back to the timey-wimey crap. Okay, because the thing I noticed is she's not at the funeral. She's not at Tony's funeral, where the rest of the Guardians were there, and she wasn't on the ship at the end when Thor shows up. So what?
She's not, no.
So
she took off.
But that's the whole thing. Tony snapped his fingers.
I thought she dusted, to be honest with you, until I saw the thing on Quill's computer that said she was missing.
So that's my whole thing, right? Because like, it goes back to the timey-wiminess of, they dusted everyone who came from the past to destroy.
No. He only dusted Thanos's forces, which she was probably not at that point because she had acted against him.
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
But
we don't know that. We don't know that.
I know we don't know that, but this goes back to Dragon Ball Z rules again, because when you're using the Dragon Balls, it's very explicit about, if you say get rid of all of Frieza's forces, if somebody acted against them like 3 minutes before the wish was made, they're not part of the forces and they don't get dust. So it's possible. Here's a
couple of reasons why we don't know that. Number one, they don't show her get dusted.
Yep.
But Tony didn't know her. He wouldn't know to think, don't dust Gamora.
But
he never met her.
But it's not him. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to know every single one of those people to dust each one of them. He just has to say, get rid of Thanos'
Get rid of the people who came back from the past to kill us. And when Gamora came, she was there to kill him.
No.
Yes.
No. No, I don't think so.
So, okay, JD, you saw it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Is her kneeing Quill in the balls after the dusting or before the dusting?
Well, that's foreplay for them.
4.
It's before the dusting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we don't know at this point if she's alive or dead. But
intentionally, they make a point of that at the end. Like I think it's literally a baited hook for their Guardians movie.
Yeah.
Because the other question is, right? We're now in this time branch thing, so it doesn't affect the past. What happens if you take that Gamora back to the past? Everyone that she knew that she was with is dusted now, so there's nothing to send her back to.
Well, yeah, to send her back to a place where her father can't hurt her anymore. Gee, that's terrible. I don't know. She's probably not going back there though, because she also lost a sister that she had been trying to save, and now she's in a place where she has a sister that has kind of been saved and is on her side.
See, I don't know. I think Gamora's messy because of how they handled it to bring her back.
I didn't say it wasn't messy, but yeah, it's.
So again, it's how are they going to handle this? How are they going to
They're going to handle it with a whole nother movie. That's how they're going to handle it.
Yeah, that is.
Listen,
that's literally the pitch.
And that's the other thing is, Guardians 3 was already written. My question is, was the script written before or after Endgame, and Infinity War?
James Gunn is credited as an EP on the film. He knows exactly what's going on.
There you go.
Okay.
Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah, I don't know how they.
He's the brain trust there, you know, because all that stuff was done before he got fired.
True. Okay.
You know,
I'm just curious how they're going to handle this because.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to feel that way.
And then the final death is Tony Stark.
Man, I cried.
Do you think that there's any possible way they would ever bring him back?
No. Now it's Robert Downey Jr. playing him anyway. No.
No? You think Robert Downey Jr. is done?
Yep.
Has he officially said that he doesn't want to do it anymore?
He said he doesn't want to do it anymore, but he's talked about making his exit and not playing the same character for years and years. Even though he loves the Tony Stark character, no, I don't think they could bring him back. I think that'd be cheaper than bringing Coulson back for the TV show. Unless Robert Downey Jr. himself calls Kevin Feige and says, you know what, I want one more crack. But I don't foresee that happening.
Okay, well, I mean, there's two things. Number one, that they could pull the old, they go in the past and pull them back, pull them into the future, because now they can do that, especially if that's how they bring Gamora back. But in the comics, currently, or recently, I don't know if they're still doing it, there's an Iron Man suit with a Tony Stark AI hologram.
All right, that would just be cheap. I don't think so.
I don't think they'll do that. And like I said before, I think that comics as a medium has the illusion of change where things have to change, but not really because you don't want to stray too far from what makes the property work. You're kind of free of that in a film because eventually they have to redo them all anyway. Like there's no way the same Marvel continuity exists 25 years from now.
Oh my God, 25 years from now.
But I'm saying there's not. Like, these things have a shelf life because people age, you know? And I don't think that we want anyone but Robert Downey Jr. Like, Robert Downey Jr. made Iron Man cool. Nobody loved Iron Man before Robert Downey Jr. Like,
and it was his literally his personality is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm only asking and I'm only pointing this out because I have seen at least one article and 4 different videos on YouTube saying that's why we heard the clanging at the end. It wasn't just a cap on the end of the Tony's story. It was a way of saying he'll be back.
Well, no, that was him. That was the number of times he swung the hammer to when he was working on his first set of armor in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally like they replayed the exact sound from that scene.
Because it's the birth of the Marvel Universe.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
I agree. That's why they did it. But
well, if you want to reach, Wait for his daughter to get older.
That's a long time to go. She's 3.
I don't know. Somebody could snap and make it 5 years. I don't who knows at this point.
That's not messy at all.
How sad was that too when they do the scene with Jon Favreau?
Oh,
having to talk to her and the cheeseburgers. Oh, that was number 7. That was number 6.
But what they pointed out in these videos, I just want to put it out there, is it sounded like they recorded a new, because the rhythm isn't the same as the one from the original movie. And 2, they pointed out the hologram at the end, talking directly to her. But
you're reaching.
I'm not reaching. I'm telling you what people on the internet are saying.
Which is reaching. It's like, yeah.
It's just
denial. Denial is the first stage.
It's also a river.
Is it the first stage?
The first stage of grief is denial.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, again, the internet is full of lots of theories. It's an interesting one. So there you go. So yeah, I think it would be, in all honesty, it would be cheap to bring him back. You know?
Okay.
The same reason Joss Whedon didn't want to ever bring Coulson back, because then it cheapens his death in the movie.
He was not at Tony Stark's funeral. I'm pretty sure in the official MCU continuity, Coulson never comes back.
Right. Oh, and at the funeral, right? Let's talk about the funeral real quick.
Sure.
The kid from Iron Man 3 was there.
Yeah, it took me. I had to look that up. I think I went, who the hell is that?
My son thought it was Colby Smulders at first. I'm like, no,
Colby Smulders,
because of the dark hair and like it goes just pans by him real quick. It doesn't linger on him or anything.
She's literally behind that kid too.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. Maybe he looked past him and saw her and thought that's what I was talking about.
He looked the kid looks pretty insignificant. Like, I don't think anybody registered with who that was, because that was one of the big things I saw, people trying to figure out who the hell that kid was.
Yeah. So, which could also be hinting at, would they have someone replace Iron Man? Not, you know what I'm saying?
Could they? Sure. Should they? I don't think so. I mean, do we all want to see someone else besides, Tony Stark be Iron Man?
I don't know.
Well, they're just going to give it a rest for now. We know that. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, do you have, like, put yourself in Rhodes' shoes, Are you comfortable being War Machine without Iron Man around?
Oh, no. He'll feel he has a duty to step up now and try to fill a void, but he's still not Iron Man. I mean, and the development of the suits is going to go by the wayside now, because who the hell has the knowledge to be able to continue improving them?
Rocket.
Yeah, Rocket's taken off.
I know, that's all I got.
Yeah, but you're right, but But what would Rocket do? He'd probably put, like a plasma rifle on the back, or a plasma cannon. I mean, it wouldn't be the same, right?
Oh,
it wouldn't have the versatility. It'd just be all about the weapons.
So Reed Richards could do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pushing for that Fantastic Four comeback.
All right. So let's see. We talked about the funeral. We've talked about the deaths. We've talked about some of our favorite moments.
I don't know. I'm talked out. I know I'll think of something tomorrow, but there's just so much,
So
I'll tell you one thing. Another one of my favorite scenes was when they're on the battlefield and all of the gates start opening, and when finally Wong comes through, and I think it was Rocket said. Was it Rocket that said?
No,
was it Spider-Man?
No, Doctor Strange says, "Is that everyone?" And Wong goes, "Do you want more?"
You want more?
Yeah, it's great line.
That was definitely directed at us.
Did everyone? did everyone catch the super secret cameo? You blink, you missed it.
Then I didn't.
Which one?
Howard the Duck was on that battlefield.
I did not see that. Damn it.
I totally missed it.
When all the Guardians people show up, he's with them.
Did I miss
He's got a
Squirrel
big-ass
Girl?
gun with him. What?
Did I miss Squirrel Girl too? Damn it.
No Squirrel Girl. That is one thing about that scene. Like, it's such a cool scene, but I kind of wondered how much of that was those groups of people being filmed on a green screen and stitched together.
It's all
of it. That's how movies are made. That's how big budget movies are made these days. They don't film sets.
Yeah, they couldn't have made. I don't know if they could have made that.
And it goes back to what John said earlier about making it more difficult to act because, like, you know, you're not in the room with all of those other people. There wasn't a room big enough to hold everyone when they were doing that.
You would have had to do that on the side of Mount Rushmore or something. I mean, it's just too many people, too many actors, too many schedules to juggle. There's no way.
As long as you're in the same shot as a person, I think you're okay. When it gets difficult is when they're putting people in different shots together. Then it becomes tough for the editing, for the acting, the editing. But as long as they're in the same shot, they're both on the set together, you're okay.
Okay. All right. So then the question really is, and we've talked about it a little bit, but where do we think the MCU is going after this?
It's going Homecoming and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and then like nowhere for like 2 years.
Nothing's been announced.
I was gonna say, let me finish. The only movie we know release date that's coming out is Far From Home. That's it. There have been no movies announced for 2020.
Well, that's because it takes a while for the executives to get used to swimming in swimming pools filled with cash. $100 bills.
I imagine we'll get something at Comic-Con.
I was going to say, what we do know is they did set aside 2 release dates for next year, but they've not said what movies are going to be in those spots. We know that
Fantastic Four reboot number 5.
the only movies we know for sure that they're working on are Doctor Strange 2, Guardians 3, The Eternals, and Black Panther 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it hasn't. I don't think there's been an official production announcement, but there's also possibility. Captain Marvel 2, and a possibility of a Thor 4.
Shoot, they could have made another movie behind our backs, and we had no clue.
Yeah,
that's what I'm wondering. Is there actually another movie, and they're gonna go, hey, by the way, June of next year, there's going to be this movie, and we're going to be like, what? Because everyone was distracted by what was going on with Endgame.
It's true.
Well, hell, they could have filmed another movie while they were filming Endgame, and nobody would have known. Even the actors might not have known.
Which could also lend to all the rumors about different endings being recorded, different cuts of the movie. It could have actually been another movie being made that people didn't realize that was what's going on.
If that's the case, I will bow to Feige as a genius, because that would just be, that would be a feather in anybody's cap. Come on.
There is another question I have, and this is, I'm completely serious about this. The Disney streaming comes out November this year. We know there's going to be Falcon and Bucky, WandaVision, and a Loki series all on this. The actual actors, and this is the first time these definitely tie into the MCU. Do you think that's part of the reason they haven't announced the movies? Because are there going to be huge tie-ins that you kind of have to see these shows?
It's possible. That's definitely possible. Like, it depends on how all in. And this could be a thing from Disney, where Disney's kind of said, hey, we want you to go all in on these shows for a little bit while you recharge your batteries for the next wave. Could be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing, is we are, for the first time in a long time, we don't know what to expect. Like, remember when they announced Phase 2 and they said that Cap 2 was going to be the Serpent Society, and then at the very end they went, gotcha, Civil War, and everybody lost their shit. Cap 3, excuse me. I mean, like, the next level up to that, like, oh, by the way, while you were sleeping, we made this movie. So I wouldn't put anything past them at this point. Like the fact that all these movies are made on green screens and all these people are locked into these like cloak and dagger contracts, like who knows? Anything is possible with these guys. Anything.
Okay. So what do you want to see them make or do that they haven't touched on yet?
Fantastic Four. I want a real version of the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
But that's what I really want, because like that is a property that has not, as we saw when Sony was doing their thing with Spider-Man, it just weren't quite getting it. And the second Feige got it, we got the best film Spider-Man ever. You know, I want to see them. I want to see them touch the Fantastic Four. That's
in an inappropriate way.
Sure. There's a married couple involved.
How about you, Mr. Tappity Tappity?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. I was tapping. What was the question again?
Tap.
I was trying to look something up on IMDb. Go ahead.
What is something that Marvel hasn't done yet that you definitely want to see in Phase 4?
A good Fantastic Four reboot?
There you go. We're on the same page.
I mean, I don't know. Let's see I can't think of like any superheroes that they haven't covered that
Superman.
Oh,
well, yeah, right.
No, I want to see them do Superman, like for real. I want to see Kevin Feige make a Superman movie.
But that would be what's his face? Who's the Superman clone?
Hyperion.
Yeah.
Sentry.
Oh, Sentry's too powerful. You can't make him. That'd be like, who are they going to put him up against? Eon? Come on, or the Living Tribunal? They're already doing Eternals, but I don't know.
Does anybody care about Eternals?
Well, you know what? The only way they'd be able to do it is if they brought in the quantum bands and we had Quasar, and they made a good one somehow.
Quasar's kind of redundant with Captain Marvel now too, so I don't think Quasar's coming anytime soon.
That's right. Their powers are basically the same, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything else.
What do you think, Dave? What do you want to see?
Wow. There is one thing, but I mean, it's nothing new. I finally want to get my Sinister Six movie that I've been promised for a really long time.
Oh, dude, Sony wants to give that movie to you
No.
badly.
I want to see a Sinister Six done in the MCU with Spider-Man.
I hope they do.
It's still too much.
I agree with that. But if Kevin Feige's doing it, they'll make it work.
Yeah, it would take more than one movie to do it right.
I agree with that.
It'd have to be at least a two-parter.
Well,
if the Spider-Man cinematic universe.
My son had an interesting theory was that
Don't say Venom. Don't say Venom.
No. What if with the time jump, the 5-year time jump, this is how they bring Harry in and the Osborns?
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. I don't know if I want to see another Harry Osborn story because we've seen that one so much.
Yeah.
And same with Green Goblin. But again, with new cooks in the kitchen, the restaurant might be serving better food.
Dave. Even better, they could bring Gwen Stacy in.
Okay.
Spider-Gwen.
No.
I know you love Spider-Gwen.
They've already brought it. We already have a great Spider-Gwen.
I know.
There's no such thing as a great Spider-Gwen. Also, I forgot the other movie that we know they're working on is Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu.
God, that's going to be great. Sorry. I get excited every time that gets mentioned.
Are they doing that because they've already ruined Iron Fist?
Probably.
So here's another crazy thought, right? Totally crazy, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm putting it out there. Daredevil was canceled last year. The deal is they can't use any of those Netflix characters 2 years from after when they were canceled. what if this secret movie's a Daredevil movie?
I'm down with that. And they're just bringing, as long as they bring in Charlie Cox and keep the continuity, I'm okay.
Because I thought about that too. Like everyone else that they're everything that they have going, and they're introducing, other than maybe Black Panther, but he still has superpowers. Are these cosmic, otherworldly stories? Right. That's where we're going. We know Adam Strange is going to be somehow tied into Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and the Eternals and all this stuff.
Warlock.
Adam Warlock. That's what I said. Adam Strange.
Adam Strange.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, timey-wimey.
So how does Shang-Chi fit into? How does a street level kung fu guy fit into this much bigger picture? And it's like, we'll bring the other street level characters in.
It's possible.
Just a crazy
possible.
idea I'm putting out there. It's probably not going to happen, people, but I know a lot of people that would be very happy if at Comic-Con they went, oh, by the way.
I'll take it if it brings in Squirrel. That's all I need.
I do hope they have a big presentation plan for this year's Comic-Con, and they're not just kind of going to take the rest of the year off and do something big next year. Because I think they're really hot right now. I think we need to bait the hook a little bit and keep us excited.
Well, that is a very serious question, is, because a lot of people are treating this movie as the end of the MCU. They're capping off the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, and they got rid of 3 of the 6 core Avengers in this movie, but it's not. Obviously, there's still a lot of pieces left in play and a lot of stories to continue on with. If they were to take a break next year, would that hurt them?
I don't know. I really don't. It did feel like I remember leaving the theater, I was with my buddy and I said, it feels like a chapter of my life is over. Like it really did have this finality to it. So if they had said that we're done with Marvel movies after that movie, like if they hadn't announced Spider-Man, if we didn't know Spider-Man was coming out in July, I'd be like, holy crap, we're done. It'd be weird. But like I said, I hope we get some answers come July. Because we missed it. They already did the big Disney, the D23 thing, right?
Yeah, that was Star Wars Celebration. They announced all the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, but Disney does their D23, right? I'm right. That's what it's called.
Yeah, D23. Is that this year? Because I think they only do it every other year.
Do they only do it every other year?
I thought so. Hold on, let's check.
Yes, D23 2019. It will be a thing.
Yes.
It will be in
August.
End of August. So actually, you know what? I don't think they'll do anything big for Comic-Con. I bet they'll unveil it at D23.
Yeah. So we gotta wait till August, people, to find out where the MCU is headed. But then again, that was the thing too. When remember you talked about the announcement where they were like, yeah, it's not really a Serpent Society, it's Civil War.
Yeah.
And then they also went, oh yeah, by the way, that Avengers 3, yeah, Infinity Gauntlet,
Mm-hmm.
That was just they rented a theater and said, we're doing a press release, and invited all the press to show up.
Is that what it was? It wasn't a Comic-Con or a D23?
Nope. No,
it
wasn't.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Because that was when they were basically saying, yeah, we don't need Comic-Con anymore.
So yeah, they're not doing anything at Comic-Con. Comic-Con kind of becoming a thing of the past.
Yeah, unfortunately. For some.
Well,
it's just those comic book nerds that are still hanging out there.
Well, it's good. I mean, like, it should be,
Right.
Should be the people that actually like comics and cosplay and like, the actual properties less than these gigantic studios pushing the movies. Let them do their own thing. Like, I respect Disney for doing that D23 thing.
So, yeah. All right. I think we've beaten this game.
We've beaten it about as dead as Tony Stark is. So
yes, John's writing his book right now.
It sounds like he's working on his book. It really does while we're talking. It's a little frustrating. So.
Wow, you can hear my typing now.
Oh, yeah.
Shoot.
So
you
loud.
guys.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
It's so loud.
It is super.
I'm used to my setup upstairs. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was that loud.
So, if there isn't any other particular scenes you guys want to talk about, I think we can go around, give our final thoughts and our score. And we'll start with Tappity Tappity Boy.
Okay. Well, my final thoughts are, okay, we could try and nitpick this, but let's put this in perspective. This was the crowning achievement, the piece de resistance of 11 years of planning and 22 movies, and it's something that's never ever been done before. And not only did they do it, they didn't just do it well, they did it to a point where this movie is going to break every box office record, period, end of story, full stop. And they did it in a way that gave us fans, like everything we could have dreamed of. Well, almost everything we could have dreamed of, Casino Squirrel. But anyway, so yes, we could nitpick, but why? It was just, like JD, there were times during this movie that literally made me cry. And I wasn't the only one in that theater. And I was in a theater very late night on a Sunday night, and it was packed. When's the last time we've ever had any movie be able to do that? Any franchise at all? So, yeah, and I was particularly happy with this movie. I want to go see it again. So yeah, I'm giving this a 10. I mean, there's just there's no way I could give it anything less. I got to give this top marks. There was just literally nothing glaringly, obviously bad about this that could possibly scorch this mark. So That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, JD.
So I was telling Dave before the show started that I went and saw it again on Sunday with my wife, and we were leaving the theater, and she started talking about the ending again with Tony with Steve and Peggy Carter, and she started crying and then started laughing, and then she got herself she couldn't catch her breath, and it got scary for a moment because she couldn't stop crying and laughing at the same time. I've never seen my wife react to a movie like that. So I knew it wasn't just me, the emotional nerd, that got attached to it. Like, this movie, like John said, we just saw Iron Man 22. And these movies stir more emotions in the time they go. Like, it does not work on its own. If you've never seen a Marvel movie, you cannot sit through Endgame and get it.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of us that are all in, it was an amazing cinematic experience. I loved it 3,000.
Oh, that's going to be overused in the next 10 minutes, right?
That's why I gotta get on it now before people start beating it up.
So you're giving it 3,000 capes? Is that?
I love it 3,000.
So you give it a 1 out of 10 score, or you're just gonna say you love it 3,000?
I'm just gonna say I love it 3,000. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's its own thing. Like, I love it. I never take the rating seriously.
No, you don't.
Gotta keep on brand.
All right. So, all right. Let's break this down real quick. One of the things we talked about last year when we talked about Infinity War is Infinity War was a setup for this movie, and how we look back on Infinity War was depending if Endgame could stick the landing. And I definitely think they stuck the landing. It was so many moments, taken right out of the comic books. The Thanos destroying the shield, Cap picking up the hammer, even the Cap versus Cap stuff, I think was a play on the whole U.S. Agent Nomad storyline when Cap came back. Kind of feel like that's why they did it. and Professor Hulk. Like, a lot of great things they pulled right out of the comics for this movie. But going back to the last movie that we reviewed was Shazam, and I gave that movie high marks because when I saw that movie, it made me feel the way I felt when I saw Superman when I was a kid, right? And I kind of like, that's how a superhero movie should be, blah, blah, blah. And again, JD, you're saying, you're right. This movie doesn't stand on its own. If you haven't seen the last 10 years of movies, this movie doesn't work by itself.
It's true.
So to be completely fair, and I gave Shazam a 9, and I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Oh.
It's not a perfect movie.
My heart just, sorry, go ahead.
You can do that all you want. I mean, it's not a perfect movie. It's not. It's going to make all the monies. It's a very good movie. It's a very good comic book movie, but it's not perfect. You know? And I gave it really high marks. I think I'm being super fair to it. You know?
There's a certain amount of situational context to it, though. I mean, I don't know. That's
Look.
Okay,
all I want to say is with a lot of these movies and whatnot, like everyone, it's in the moment. You're loving it right now. It's the best thing since sliced bread. How are you going to feel about this movie 5 years from now?
What else is a movie though, but in the moment, Dave?
No, there's classic movies that you go back and watch all the time.
Well, yeah.
I can go back and watch Civil War and Winter Soldier over and over and over again. Those are two great movies.
I don't think these are those kind of movies by design, to be honest with you. I think these are supposed to be something different. And I actually think that I was thinking about this the other day, like how that, and I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think we're on the same page where you definitely can't watch this one on its own. Like, you can't pop this movie in and get stuff done around the house. You know, this movie requires attention. And I think I see where you're coming from, and I don't disagree that, like, I do think that's actually one of the strengths of the movie is that you have to be emotionally invested in it. Like,
right.
Not in it, but I mean, like, in the game. Like, the entire game to see it. And depending on what, I don't disagree with you. I think your rating is more than fair. I think it's a positive that you have to see so many of these movies before, because that's like the way they're designed. Like, they're not designed to be Ant-Man, something that can be watched in a vacuum.
Right.
So it depends on what you're looking for from the experience. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, again, I'm saying I liked the movie. I'm just saying it's not a perfect superhero movie. So that's all. You know, in the moment, everyone's like going, "Oh my God, that was so perfect." But 5 years from now, are they going to feel the same way about it? I'm not so sure.
I don't know. I think this one will. I mean, at the very least, like 5-10 years from now, you'll get movie theaters that are like, "Hey, come to see our 24-hour movie marathon."
I think
2-day marathon.
I think in a few years, when people look back and they rank their favorite Marvel movies, they're still going to put Iron Man #1 at the top. A lot of people put the first Avengers near the top and Winter Soldier near the top. I still think they're going to remain your top 3 movies, even though there's a lot of great moments in both of these movies. It's tough. It's tough to say that it's gonna. It's tough to say there's no chinks in the armor of these movies that people are gonna look at going back. You know, the same thing with the '89 Batman. It was the greatest movie in the world when it came out. Everyone loved it. Broke box office records. Everyone went and saw it. You look back on it now and you're like, not such a great movie.
Few movies stand the test of time, and I think that you need the perspective of time to really look back. I mean, like, Avatar is the highest making movie of all time, and does anybody know anyone that loves that movie? I've never spoken to a person that loves Avatar. You know,
on Octavium. Sorry. Yeah, I agree.
But that made all the money when it came out.
It did. It was. To be honest, I've never seen it. I don't know. I never saw Avatar.
Okay.
That's not surprising.
Well, that's okay. I've actually never seen Titanic.
Me neither.
Yeah, okay.
I refused to see it back in high school when it beat Star Wars the number one money-making movie of all time, and I hold a grudge. So I don't know, man. I think that I think it's a different kind of movie experience. This is a different kind of movie experience. Like, I think this one has to stand much like we talked about, like those classic comic books. Like, I don't want this to become the new standard. I want this to stand out and be unique and be itself.
Right.
You know? But I'm curious to see what time does this. Because you're right. A lot of times we get excited for movies and we love them. And then you go back to rank your movies and it's like, guess I didn't love it as much as I think I did.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Just movies in general. I'm not saying for this one or Infinity War. I'm just talking about movies in general that you say, oh man, I love that movie. But then you go back and think about it and you're like, oh, I don't want to watch it again. Or, you know, it's not one of my top 10 or whatever.
Yeah. When everyone gets a little bit of distance from this, or after you watch Far From Home, and, you know, just like, I'm saying this to the listeners right now, in all seriousness, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, right now you're putting this at the top of your Marvel list. Re-rank your Marvel movies 3 weeks from now and see if you still put this at the top.
I'm not.
Of all the 22 films.
Yeah, it's not the top of it's not my favorite Marvel movie. It got a legit emotional reaction out of me more than any other, but it's not my favorite. Guardians of the Galaxy will always be my favorite Marvel movie.
There you go.
But I can sit there and say this is a fantastic freaking movie and I love it. I love it to death. But a movie like, it doesn't make me, I don't know, like I don't know how my wife said this to me, she's like, I don't know how rewatchable it is. But it doesn't change how I felt in the moment.
Right.
You know?
Yes. No, exactly. All right then. I think this was a good one, and this was a long one. We apologize in advance for you.
No, not in advance. We apologize after we've already done the deed.
Yes, that's true. But yeah, no. So we're gonna put a pin in it. As always, thanks for listening, and don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.